Right on All In. The ICE incursion in Minnesota continues. And Americans are rejecting the Trump tactics.
You don't want militarized people in the streets just roaming around, snatching people up. Are we really going to be the Gestapo? Where's your papers?
Tonight, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar on the siege on her district and Senator Amy Klobuchar on the DOJ exodus over what's happening in Minnesota. Then, as the president flips off a heckler for calling him a pedophile protector at the Ford plant, Paul Krugman on Donald Trump's threat to the Fed and the global economy.
If I had the help of the Fed, it would be easier. But that jerk will be gone soon.
When All In starts right now. Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. In Minneapolis and across the country, we are seeing a widespread, organized, nonviolent resistance to the reign of terror and retribution that Donald Trump's federal agents are bringing to America's neighborhoods. It's been nearly 1 week since an ICE agent shot and killed 37-year-old Renee Good in her Honda Pilot on a quiet residential street as she tried to drive away. And since then, people in and around Minneapolis have been out in the streets saying, "We are not having it. We do not want you here." And in response, Trump's armed agents have been absolutely terrorizing their communities. Just today, in a video shared by the journalist Amanda Moore, who's done great reporting on this, we saw agents drag a screaming woman out of her own car and throw her to the ground before detaining her as she tried to explain that she is disabled and on her way to see a doctor.
My police before I'm disabled, so I can go to the doctor up there. That's why I didn't
They smashed her window, they cut her seatbelt, they pulled her out of the car. We've seen far too many scenes just like that unfold throughout Minnesota this week in video after video after video. On Sunday, a number of ICE and CBP agents descended on a gas station in the Twin City of St. Paul. They started things off by dragging a man out of his car, violently wrestling him to the ground, and then carrying him off to be detained. Another man was thrown to the ground as he screamed that he was not resisting before being carried out by multiple agents.
I'm not resisting. Hey, I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting. This is how you spend your life? Hey, can somebody grab my phone? Being a cheap JV Gestapo?
I got your phone.
That's what you want?
I got your phone.
Who do you need us to contact? Hey, my girlfriend's right behind you. Give us a phone number. My girlfriend's right behind me.
Once you guys get him in, let's get him into Victor 3, okay?
I'm going to Victor 3. That's what they said. Victor 3. Get up. Give him a good pat down. Once you get him up, give him a good pat down. Get up. You know what? All right, we got you. Pick up the leg. Pick up the leg. Back up, you guys. Stay back. Stay back.
By the way, just to be clear, as far as we know, the information we have, this person wasn't like a person they were pursuing or looking for who was accused of a crime or suspected of doing anything violent. Like, as far as we can tell in a lot of these videos, these are just people that agents are just seeing and then going after. Here's another one, another gas station, Minneapolis, okay? We've got video of a federal agent just walking up, harassing a man, minding his own business, pumping gas to determine exactly which kind of American citizen he is.
Here, let me see your document. You have the border patrol. What do you need? I don't have to show you. How do I know you're a citizen? It can go two ways. I can take your Where were you born? Where were you born? Africa? Are you a U.S. citizen or you got naturalized? U.S. You're naturalized? What year?
Do you hear that? Are you a U.S. citizen or you got naturalized? To be clear, a citizen of these United States is a citizen of these United States. There is no tiered citizenship depending on if you were born here or naturalized. That's the very promise of this country, certainly the core promise of the Constitution's 14th Amendment. But that clearly does not matter to this administration that doesn't seem to like the 14th Amendment much. Late last week, we saw agents aggressively detaining 2 American citizens working at Target in Richfield, Minnesota, as one of them implored his coworkers to contact his mother.
Shit, where's the shit? Christian, do you have somebody you want us to call? My mom. What's her number?
That's Christian. He works with me in Drive Up. Christian, just be. It's okay. He's a worker. He's here working.
Do you see this deployment of resources, this deployment of federal dollars? A dozen masked armed agents in camouflage to apprehend a teenage American citizen who works at Target? If there's any silver lining here at all, it is that people are absolutely not willing to tolerate their friends and neighbors being treated this way. At seemingly every opportunity, the people of Minnesota and every other community being occupied by Trump's agents are telling these agents, to their often masked faces, that, to put it very gently, they're not welcome. We would like you to move on. Take, for instance, the poster boy for Trump's incursion, Senior Border Patrol Officer Greg Bavino. He received a particularly vulgar greeting as his phalanx of masked men stood guard outside while he used a Target bathroom. A warning about the language here.
You guys are all broke. Look what you're doing for work. This is what you went to school for? You went to school for 4 years to be an ICE agent? Is this what your parents would be proud of? Huh? You guys are f***ing bums. What are we doing, man? You guys are f***ing bums. All of you f***ing bums. What are we doing? F***ing bum. You're a this f***ing got probably too. You guys are all you can't do shit to me. You can't do a thing to me. Get the f*** out of here. Get the f*** out. Nobody f***ing wants you here.
Get the F out of here. Nobody effing wants you here. That's basically been the tone of most of the free speech of Minneapolis residents directed at these masked men, vowing not to let them know a moment of quiet or peace as these masked men terrorize their neighborhoods and communities. Again, a warning on the language here.
Yes, you clearly. Oh, what does that say? Border Patrol. Yeah, you're a Nazi. You work for the orange fascists in chief.
I mean, I got to say, at a purely human level, I can't imagine what is going through the minds, hearts of these federal agents who are seeing this. Is it making them question what they're doing? For some historical context here, what we're seeing, right? Random cops just rolling up on people, demanding papers, really bears striking resemblance to what British troops did to the American colonists in the run-up to the American Revolution. I mean, stopping folks in the street, searching and harassing people on a whim without any due process, basically using a general warrant to go door to door, no legitimate justification. And guess what? In the year 2026, the people of this country did not much like it, don't much like it any more than they did in the year 1776. This is breaking through to people in a way that very few Trump scandals have this term. And there is no sign of the resistance backing down or letting up. MS Now contributor Philip Bumps, a data journalist and creator of How to Read This Chart newsletter. Nikki McCann Ramirez is a politics reporter for Rolling Stone, and they join me now. It's good to have you both here. Phil, let me start with you because I think you've been spending a lot of time going through these videos as we have. And we should just note here that, like, we live in a world in which, like, you really got to figure out that you verify the videos, that they're taken by who they say, that they show what they say. I mean, we have been doing all that work internally with a great news organization. You cannot just trust anything you see online.
Sure.
I am just struck by the ubiquity and ferocity, nonviolent militants of people's opposition to this, and also the terror that people are experiencing at their schools, their gas stations, at their homes, everywhere in Minneapolis right now.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. And I think there are two things that really jump out to me. The first is the subgenre of videos that is out there now, which is ICE officers throwing Renee Goods, killing in people's faces, and saying, did you not see what happened last week as a threat? There are multiple examples of them doing that, which is striking. This is them having killed a person and then saying, do you want to be like that person? That, I think, cannot go unacknowledged. The other thing is, it's important to remember that as we watch these videos, and I think the example of the guy at the gas station or the naturalized citizen was a great example. Like, what's the point? Like, what are they even doing? Who are they getting rid of? Like, it's literally just people off the street. Like, it's not as though this is being done because there is this cadre of murderers that's sitting in Minneapolis. It's being done because Donald Trump just wants to get rid of immigrants. And I think that is important to remember, too.
It's being done for one more reason, I would submit, and I suspect you would agree, Nikki, is for the content. I mean, this is what I think is interesting, right? So part of this is, you know, Bovino, they like the show, right? And we had that example where they raided an apartment building on the south side of Chicago with Apache helicopters, rappelled down, right? And then they cut a big video together. What I think is interesting, Nikki, and I'm curious what you make of it, is they think this makes them look strong and intimidating. And I think the result of the last week of this is that this makes them look terrible, and it is absolutely alienating the general public.
Absolutely. Much of the Trump administration strategy over the past year has quite literally been to play to Twitter, play to their most rabid, most in-tune online supporters, and take that as an endorsement writ large by the country of their actions. And I think something that I feel we really need to point out is even going back to very early in the administration, when the operation to send Venezuelan migrants to Secot was filmed and distributed in a propaganda reel, much the same way as Bukele. That was at the very beginning of Trump's term. Last year was the deadliest year for people in ICE custody in 2 decades.
Yeah.
This is not just about filming content. The things we are seeing happening right now in Minneapolis, so many of those videos, so many of those people that are being dragged out of their cars, threatened with death, asked for their papers, their citizens, their residents, it pales in comparison to what's going on in ICE detention facilities where
we don't have cameras. Yes, and
because that's what they don't want to show the public.
And we've also got, we've started to hear some stories coming out of ICE detention, particularly in Minneapolis. We've had other places. It also strikes me that you're seeing, you know, if the idea was, to the point you're making about listening to these federal agents invoke Renee Good as a, like, better behave yourself, it's having the opposite effect. And it's not just folks on the street. I mean, the public opinion, you got 3 different polls out today. We got YouTube, I think Quinnipiac, and one other, if I'm not mistaken. The numbers are pretty shocking across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, majority saying they think the force was unjustified. Majority saying that, you know, ICE should be either abolished or reduced in size. Abolish ICE being a 50-50 proposition, 43-42. What do you make of what the sort of popular reaction is to what we're seeing play out on tape?
No, I think you summarized it well, right? Yeah, the YouGov poll in particular is very striking, that for the first time that I have seen, abolish ICE actually is above the maintain ICE position, 46-43, if I remember. This is all broadly unpopular. But again, to your point about content creation, Donald Trump has never been about being popular broadly. He lies and says everyone loves him, which isn't true. He's always been about having his base be loyal, having his base stick with him. And they have drawn a very, very clear line in the sand on this, which is, you are going to agree with this. You are going to agree that Renee Good deserved it. You are going to agree that what you're seeing is what ought to happen. And everything that they're doing, all the content they produce, is aimed at reinforcing that we are the guys, we're the tough guys, we're the ones doing it, so that he maintains his base, so that his base continues to put pressure on Republicans, so that Republicans don't go sideways on Trump.
You know, the invocation I had of 1776 and the monologue is intentional, because I think one of the things that defines a free country is, like, you can stand in front of a federal agent and be like, get the F out of my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not something I would say. I'm a pretty genteel guy. but that's part of being a free society. Another example of a free society is Donald Trump goes to the Ford plant today. I mean, I'm serious. This is what, like, and again, this isn't just some trivial thing. This is what the whole fight is about. Like, do we live in the kind of country where you can do this or not? And a worker screams at him and calls him a pedophile protector. And he flips the worker off before walking away. I think we have this footage. Play that for us for a second. Maybe not. Sorry, we need a second. So he goes to the Ford plant. Afterwards, the White House says a lunatic was wildly screaming expletives in a complete fit of rage. The president gave an appropriate and unambiguous response. Here it is. Someone screaming pedophile protector. Again, their whole thing is project strength, project popularity, only care about the base. But that's not the reality out in the world.
No, not at all. And I think at every turn, whether it's the Epstein scandal, the way ICE is behaving, Trump's economic policies, the actions of the administration betray a lack of discipline that I think people can really see. Phil and I were talking about this in the green room earlier. If you want to make the Epstein scandal go away, which it seems the Trump administration very much wants to do, the way you don't do that is flipping off someone who calls you a pedophile protector on camera. And it's just a sign that this administration, the same way the president can't help himself from getting in front of a camera and just crafting policy right off the bat, from screaming at reporters, the same way this administration is allowing ideological goons to join a Gestapo force with virtually no training, the way this administration is constantly trying to throw Band-Aids on top of mistake after mistake after mistake, those kinds of actions have consequences. And I think the American people, I think your 1776 comparison is particularly apt because as someone who grew up in a very conservative family, one of the core ideological principles of conservatives is the thing you need to be wary about is government repression.
Yes, exactly.
That one day the government will come for you.
And that Joe Rogan clip we played at the top, he's got a longer monologue where he says, like, this is kind of the nightmare, right? When people kind of do this. Philip Bump, Nikki McCameron, great to have you both here. Coming up, Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, whose district is where Renee Good was shot and killed, on the resistance to ICE outside of Minnesota, in D.C., and across the country. That's next.
And then I can also see the point of view of the people that say, yeah, but you don't want militarized people in the streets just roaming around, snatching people up, many of which turn out to actually be U.S. citizens. They just don't have their papers on them. Are we really going to be the Gestapo? Where's your papers? Is that what we've come to?
We're seeing many Americans across the country express a sentiment similar to the one that Joe Rogan proposes there. In fact, just today, YouGov released a poll showing more Americans now support abolishing ICE altogether than are opposed by a 3% margin. It's a slogan that many would have considered politically toxic just a few years ago. In fact, many did, and now seems to be resonating with voters, thanks in no small part to Trump and his allies on the right overplaying their anti-immigration hand. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar represents Minneapolis, and Renee Nicole Good was one of her constituents, and she joins me now. Congresswoman, first let me just ask about how your district is doing and what you have been hearing from the people you represent in that district over the past several days.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. The district really is on edge. People are angry. People are frustrated. They're confused. They don't understand why this chaos is necessary. And they certainly do not want this level of militarized ICE and border agents just roaming the streets, harassing and terrorizing their neighbors.
I read an article today in the Chicago Tribune that had a lead that was about a woman in Minneapolis who had federal agents knock on her door, asking her to identify the Hmong folks in her neighborhood and Asian folks in her neighborhood, if she could point them out. You represent a very diverse and remarkably mixed area. What does it do to a community to have the federal government doing that kind of ethnic, racial stalking?
Yeah, it's traumatizing. The level of terror people are experiencing is interrupting their ability to lead their lives in a normal way. We've had schools that have been canceled. We have businesses that are closing because they don't want ICE terrorizing their customers. There are a lot of people who are very much scared to go grocery shopping or visit a friend. A lot of the community is organizing itself to try to deliver food to people who are feeling that way. And so this is not only impacting folks who are immigrants, but it is having an impact on every single person.
The president, once again today, reiterated a bunch of really kind of gutter racist claims about Somalians, Somali Americans, including yourself. I'm not going to play it because it's just too gross to air. How much do you feel like this animus towards you, towards Somali Americans, is driving this entire now deadly spectacle?
I do think that he has, a target on the backs of Somalis. Unfortunately, when they came into Minneapolis, they didn't find what they thought that they would find. What they found was a community that is probably 99% legally in this country, many of them who are citizens, nearly 60% of them born in the United States. And so because they can't fulfill this promise that they made that they were going to round up Somalis, they're basically now just harassing everyone else in that anger of not being able to do what they wanted to do.
There is an increasingly loud debate over what Congress should do about what we're seeing. Some Democrats have been pushing for a fight over DHS funds. I've read members of Congress announce that there'll be a no on the upcoming continuing resolution, or it's called minibus, small omnibus, to keep the government funded, barring some changes for DHS. Where do you come down on this?
Yeah, we just put out, we just had a press conference as the lead for the Progressive Caucus. Our caucus took a stand in not supporting any funding for DHS unless there are some real changes that take place when it comes to ICE and border control.
You, along with several other members, had a visit to a facility this weekend. We've seen a number of these visits to facilities. Now, there's legislation that requires admittance of Congress, members of Congress, unannounced to inspect these facilities. That was something that was put into the law years ago. And yet we've seen resistance from DHS officials, including famously in Newark, where Monica McIver was, sort of roughed up a bit by agents. She's now being prosecuted for that. What happened to you when you tried to visit a facility this weekend?
Well, we arrived, myself and two other members from the Minnesota congressional delegation. We made our presence known. We told them we were there to do oversight. We were originally let in. And given an initial tour, and then, 10 minutes or so in, the agent who was taking us around got a phone call. We do think it was probably from someone from D.C. and was told that we could no longer continue because something about the big, beautiful bill prohibited us from being able to do our oversight.
The president today is promising a day of reckoning and retribution coming to Minnesota. There's an announcement of more agents that are being sent to your district, to your city, to your state. It's now the largest operation. I think DHS is bragging the largest operation they've undertaken. What do you want? What needs to happen immediately for this situation to, I don't know, calm down, dissipate, find some equilibrium? This seems, what's going on right now, just utterly dangerous and unsustainable.
Yeah, I mean, it is more than dangerous. We've seen somebody already get murdered. We don't want to see anything like that take place. They have not been able to tell us what is the purpose for this search. They haven't been able to produce any evidence that they are finding people who are undocumented, who have committed crimes. Almost every single person that they have information and shared information with us has been someone that has already been adjudicated and was already in prison. And so there's no way to justify what they are doing. It is unleashing complete terror on the residents of Minnesota.
Do you have a message for the president who has targeted you a lot about what you want to see happen in your district?
We want ICE out of our district. We want them out of our state. We want this terror to stop. The lives of people are being interrupted. And it is not justifiable for the president to target our state and the residents of the beautiful state of Minnesota this way.
Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who represents the district where Renee Good was shot and killed. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Still ahead, Senator Amy Klobuchar on the exodus of federal prosecutors in the Minneapolis office. This story blew up today. It is really wild. That's going to be next. In the past 24 hours, the Department of Justice has had enough scandals to overwhelm any previous administration of my lifetime. So first, in a story first reported by MS Now, at least 6 top prosecutors in the DOJ Civil Rights Division have resigned in protest after their boss, a right-wing Twitter-addicted Trump appointee, stepped in to stop the standard federal investigation into the shooting of Renee Good by that ICE agent, according to 3 people briefed on the departures. And in Minneapolis today, another 6 federal career prosecutors, including the number 2 official in the U.S. Attorney's Office there, also quit their jobs in protest because they were pressured by senior officials in Washington to open a criminal probe into the widow of Renee Good, the woman who watched her wife get killed by an ICE agent. That's according to people with knowledge of their decision. Senator Amy Klobuchar is a Democrat in Minnesota. She previously served as the Hennepin County attorney, and she joins me now. Senator, we don't have all the details here. The reporting indicates that D.C. has been pushing to essentially open a punitive criminal investigation into the, quote, activist associations of the widow of Renee Good, and that this was too much for 6 officials, including the number 2 in that office. What's your response to that?
This is unbelievable, Chris, and I appreciate you covering it. This is a treasure of an office, this U.S. Attorney's Office. Twice has won the national award for taking on complex cases like sex trafficking, solved one of the biggest missing persons case along with our federal, local, state law enforcement. The Jacob Wetterling case took the lead on that, prosecuting a major fraud ring. And in fact, the guy, Joe Thompson, 16-year-old veteran with the office who is so respected by law enforcement, is leading the fraud cases, which I think are very important to bring. And he is the one, along with 5 other excellent attorneys, who stepped down today. They didn't give their reasons, but the news reports appear to be similar to other cases around the country. I mean, they took an oath, Chris. They took an oath to serve justice, and they took an oath to follow the law. And when they are asked to do something that they feel is not consistent with that oath, and I was a prosecutor, so I understand this, they make their own decisions. And in this case, you already had the Justice Department shutting out the seasoned professionals at the State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in the investigation, and now we see this. And I talked to Joe Thompson today and thanked him for his incredible service. I didn't go into the reasons. I didn't want to do that because my job was to thank him, because they literally got rid of the guy. He took himself out of this. Who was the lead on the cases that they claim they're sending the ICE agents in. And, you know, more power to him to do more on the investigation of righteous cases on fraud. That's not what this is. As you see the videos which you showed, they are just literally stopping random citizens who yell, "I have my passport," or following DoorDash delivery people into private homes, or stopping American Indians and holding them, or legal citizens who work at Target. And I want to make clear to the viewers, These aren't just huge organized protests, which honestly, it's going to be super cold in the coming 7 degrees in Minnesota. What they are just people who are in the Menards parking lot who say, wait a minute, this isn't right, and they film it or they say, stop this, or neighbors who are just organically coming up because there are 3,000 ICE agents, we believe, in our state. It was 2,000, now they're adding more, which overwhelms 10 Metro police departments and is actually double the amount of sworn police officers we have in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So when they went into LA and Chicago, it's bad, but in this case, they are more people and more agents than we have our local cops.
Yeah, and these are some quotes from Brian O'Hara, who's the Minneapolis police chief.
Very well-respected Minneapolis police chief, who I will note when those kids were shot down in that church, his department is the one that got there in 3 minutes, got everyone on the ambulance, saved so many lives, 20-some people in 18 minutes. That's the police chief you're talking about here. So go on.
And I've been listening to several interviews he gave, one of them about the departure of Mr. Thompson, again, who was the lead prosecutor on that fraud ring, which is a very real thing and being pursued, and was, as you said, the kind of pretext for this. He said that the resignation dealt a major blow to efforts to root out rampant theft from state agencies. The fraud cases, which involved schemes to cheat safety net programs, were the chief reason the Trump administration cited for its immigration crackdown in the state. When you lose the leader responsible for making the fraud cases, it tells you this isn't really about prosecuting fraud. One more thing that I've heard from Mr. O'Hara I would like to hear your response to is that there has been a real cost to local policing and law enforcement from the ICBP presence, that they are getting lots of 911 calls of vehicles abandoned in the road, of people calling 911 when ICE is at their door because they don't know who else to call, that it has actually made tangibly obstructing the public safety portfolio of the local police in Minneapolis right now.
They are making us less safe, not more safe. And there's millions of dollars in overtime now that is at a taxpayer expense for our police department and others in the metro area, simply trying to respond to citizens in their homes who say, I don't know, they're surrounding my home. What is going on? They don't have a warrant. What should I do? And Chief O'Hara has spent a lot of time building trust with the community, trust with his officers, and has done an excellent job. And so he is a voice of reason in all of this. And as he said, these fraud cases must go forward. Taxpayers shouldn't be ripped off. People who did this should go to jail. But right now what's happening is they are literally picking up random citizens just because they look different, asking them, as you saw in your video, where they're from, and they say, I'm legal, here's my ID, or they yell as they're being wrestled down to the ground, I'm legal. This is not doing anything to advance the fraud cases. It's the opposite. And also, it is creating this tinderbox situation. And we just keep telling the people of Minnesota, because they're also going to suburbs, talk to a number of suburban mayors, or going to small towns. We have told them, don't take the bait to the citizens. Don't engage in anything but peaceful protest, and be very careful right now, because it feels to us like they just want to have more trouble instead of listening to our seasoned law enforcement and making our state safer. And that's why we want them to leave.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, Minnesota, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris.
Still to come, Paul Krugman on Donald Trump's wild attack on the centerpiece of the global financial system. Next. When the news broke that Trump's Justice Department launched a criminal investigation into Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, Powell did something he never does. He responded forcefully on camera.
The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do, with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people.
And that pushback is working. Already that statement has gotten more than 1 million views on YouTube, and now even Trump allies are kind of trying to distance themselves from the probe, which was opened by former Fox host and current U.S. Attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro. Senate Republican Tom Tillis, who sits in the Banking Committee, has vowed to oppose all of Trump's nominees for the Federal Reserve until, quote, this legal matter is fully resolved. Trump's own Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has also pushed back, with two sources informing Axios. Bessent told Trump the probe, quote, made a mess. And it's not just here at home. Global central bankers, including the heads of the European Central Bank and Bank of England, issued a joint statement earlier defending Powell. Now, despite the lack of support, Trump, you might not be surprised to hear, does not appear to be backing down, repeatedly going after Powell just today.
Either is incompetent or he's crooked. He's been a lousy Fed chairman. He was reappointed by Biden. If I had the help of the Fed, it would be easier. But that jerk will be gone soon.
Paul Krugman is a Nobel Prize-winning economist, author of the Krugman Wonks Out Substack, which I read and enjoy, and he joins me now. Paul, let's just start on the pushback we have seen. I mean, you've got, a bunch of bank CEOs saying this is bad. You got the Wall Street Journal editorial page. You got the business press. You've got Republicans getting pretty worried about this. Do you think it's meaningful that we're seeing the reaction we have seen to this obviously pretextual, abusive investigation into Powell?
Well, sure. I mean, this is, it would be one thing, would be a bad thing if Trump were simply trying to impose his will on the Federal Reserve. There are very good reasons why we want a fair degree of independence. Independent central banking has been, one of the things that has kept the world relatively stable. It's gotten us through a lot. So if you were just infringing on the independence, that would be bad. But to say that, make it personal, to use, trumped up charges against the Fed chairman, that's completely over the top. There's been nothing like this in any advanced, stable country ever. This is completely, as there was a letter from a bunch of former Fed chairs and other former officials that said, it was kind of in Fed speak, but it said, basically, you're behaving like a corrupt third world country. That's not supposed to happen in countries at our level.
Today, I think there's a sense of, there's all this pushback and this hope that he won't, they won't go through it. They won't prosecute Powell, whose term is up in 6 months anyway. But it does seem to me that everyone's whistling past the graveyard a little bit to the point you just made, which is the obvious endpoint here is to produce a Federal Reserve where the Fed chairman is a lackey for the president. And the president tells him what he wants the rates to be, and he tries to push that through. Now, the board has to vote. And I just want to show people Turkey's Erdogan did this in Turkey, straightforwardly. And here's what happened. When he fires the central bank president, you see in 2021, they have fairly high inflation, and then it goes absolutely through the roof. We've seen this in Argentina as well. We've seen it in Zimbabwe famously. This seems to be the end goal, is to get rid of Fed independence and have the rates be set by Donald Trump, who's going to want them always low, to the possible demise of the U.S. economy. Do you feel like that's being priced in adequately right now?
No. At the moment, the markets are acting as if, look, this is not really going to happen. And for the next, for next year or so, even if, Trump replaces Powell with somebody more amenable, even if he replaces him with a hack, which seems highly likely, if the Fed is not run by one man. The Fed is, the decisions are made by committee, and most of the committee will not be Trump appointees. But of course, if we're heading for, first of all, that's, over time it gets worn down. And secondly, if we're talking about a situation in which every Fed official knows that, trumped up criminal charges will be brought against them, that they, instead of just saying, I demand you do this, or, that we will ruin your life, we will destroy you if you don't go along, that's a situation in which things can rapidly unravel. And I don't think the markets are fully taking that on board.
Trump was in Detroit today to give a sort of economic speech. He went to a Ford plant, sort of a fascinating little moment where a Ford worker, we now found out his name, he's a UAW worker at the Ford plant, heckled Trump. He called him a pedophile protector. The president gave him the middle finger. Here's how that went down. An F you, and then a middle finger. Are you struck, Paul, by how much people seem to hate this economy right now? in every single measure of it, particularly in what we call the soft data, consumer sentiment and all that stuff?
Yeah, I am a little surprised because I kind of thought that there's a partisan element, and I thought we do know that Republicans tend to cheer louder and boo harder, and so just having a Republican president, you thought that people would start to be at least say they were more optimistic about the economy, the inflation. The big inflation spike is receding in the rearview mirror. So I kind of thought that people would start to, be more positive. But there's really two things going on here. One is that in some important ways, the economy really is bad. Unemployment isn't that high, but getting a job is very hard. It's a frozen economy. So people are very, very nervous. You have a job, but if you have a dispute with your boss and you try to step out the door, there may not be another job. It's a very long time now to find a job. It's very poor for people who are not comfortably seated. And the other thing is that I think the cognitive distance between all the things that Trump promised. We were supposed to have prices falling. We were supposed to have the greatest economy you've ever seen. And even he keeps on saying that we have this wonderful hot economy, and that's not what people are experiencing.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And that collision between what Trump says and what Trump promised and the kind of dreary reality of the economy is what's doing it. But, it is amazing.
Paul Krugman, thank you so much. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Before we go tonight, I want to take a moment to talk about a piece of American history in the news, the largest synagogue in the state of Mississippi. Temple Beth Israel in Jackson has been a sanctuary for the Jewish community there since just after the Civil War. And nearly a century later, in 1967, the synagogue was firebombed by KKK members because the rabbi was a civil rights leader. Members of the congregation held services for their high holy days in the rooms. They repaired the damage. Some of them even helped infiltrate the KKK to bring the arsonists to justice. But over the weekend, amid an ongoing spate of violent anti-Semitic attacks and desecrations of synagogues across the country, Temple Beth Israel was burned again. The temple's library was destroyed. Some of the same spaces that burned in 1967 were damaged in Saturday's blaze. Federal prosecutors have charged a 19-year-old man who was turned in by his father. In an affidavit, prosecutors said the man laughed as he told his father what he did and said he finally got them, apparently referring to Jews. But just like after the 1967 attack, there's been an outpouring of support from temples, churches, and individuals. And Beth Israel's rebuilding, raising money on their website, bethisraelms.org, to fix what's been destroyed. In a statement this week, a congregation vowed to, quote, proudly, even defiantly continue Jewish life in Jackson in the face of hatred. Amen to that. That is all in on this Tuesday night. The briefing with Jen Psaki starts right now. Good evening, Jen.